when you think about it, RAQ is in for problems because RAQ only survives in this business because of her relationships, right? Chiefly having her two brothers and the rest of the crew around them. Now, RAQ deciding at this point to get out the game is probably the best path forward, but how well she'll be able to make that transition remains to be seen. But the reality is, I don't think she really can continue in the game, right? Like, she kind of played herself into a corner where, with the things that she's done to Lou, the things that she's done to Marvin, and arguably all the stuff around Kanan, she's isolated. The only person, ironically, that she still, at least for the time being, has in her corner is Marvin. You know, where, and I think that speaks to like Marvin's growth as a character. If this was Marvin from the first season, I think he would have automatically sided with Lou. Possibly. But this like more introspective and, let's say, patient and maturing Marvin kind of tries to see the different sides of the situation. And so with that, it's like he doesn't immediately become upset with RAQ, right? He tries to understand her perspective. And so with that, really, he's like her only remaining ally. Like, the things that she's done has pretty much alienated everyone else, right? Kanan doesn't want to have anything to do with her. Her exchanges with Lulu now makes it that he doesn't want to have anything to do with her. He's like actually quite angry because, and again, it goes back to the first season when her whole entanglement with, what's the guy's name? With Symphony. Right, the last time that they were intimate, and she was telling him about her plans for the future, where even back then, she wanted to get out of the game and eventually, like, be removed from the drug business and to, like, you know, like, have kids and seemingly live, like, a normal life and whatnot. But you look at the selfishness of it, right? Her plan was she's going to leave this life behind, and she wanted Lulu to run things and to set things up so that she makes money off of it, but she's no longer directly involved. And Lulu kind of spoiled her plans by deciding on his own that he no longer wanted to be involved in the business. So it's kind of selfish when you think about it, right? Where she recognizes that this isn't the life that she wants to continue living, right? Like, the risk is not outweighing the reward. The things that she has to deal with is not outweighing the rewards. And so it's like she wants to leave this life behind. She doesn't really like the person it's making her into. She realizes that she's problematic as the person she is, right? She states that to Symphony. But that her plan is when she gets out of this life, she can change as a person, right? She doesn't want to be this person permanently. But Lulu doesn't like the things he has to do in this life of work or in pursuit of this line of work and wants to remove himself from the situation. And like, she's having none of that, you know? And so it becomes this thing where it's selfish because she's trying to keep him in the game so that she can get out. And it's like, it's something that he points out where it's like the things that she makes him do, and she gives him such a hard time for him trying to remove himself from the situation. But now here it is that she expresses to everyone else that she wants to get out of the business. It's extremely selfish. Now, up to this point, we've never really seen Kanan and Lou really on their own. We've seen, like, going back to the first season, even into the second season, we've seen Lou and Jukebox one-on-one. I think, like, really the one time we've seen Kanan and Lou interact one-on-one was, like, last season when RAQ was bringing Kanan more into the business and they met up at, I think it was the club or something like that. And Lou was actually warning Kanan against getting more deeply involved with RAQ. And here we see where Kanan shows back up at the old house. And I thought he was just there just because he's like living bummy with Famous. But as it turns out that like Lou actually invited him there, you know, and the two of them sit down kind of trading war stories of like surviving RAQ and kind of fleshing out things that have taken place for each other to each other, so Kanan already knew about D-Wiz being killed, but RAQ kind of put that on herself, when she mentioned it to Kanan back in the first season, when she came clean to Kanan about it. She didn't tell him that Lou was the one that actually pulled the trigger, It remains to be seen. Lou comes clean to Marvin that RAQ admitted to him that, Scrappy wasn't snitching. Now, I do think I agree with Marvin. I think Scrappy was a little bit suspect in his movements, like he violated a direct order and then was like moving a little bit funky. So I understand the lack of faith, but RAQ came clean to Lou, telling him that, Scrappy had not snitched, that she made the wrong call in that situation. Now, up to this point, this is yet another thing that I don't think Kanan knows about, right? Kanan knows that Scrappy died, but RAQ didn't tell him that she's the one that killed him. And at that she killed him for like the wrong reason, And so it's like with the two of them sitting down and trading stories, I would assume that given that Marvin went and spoke to Lou at this point probably now knows that Howard is Kanan's father. But with the two of them sitting down and talking, where Lou knows more about her background, Kanan knows things about her as well, between the two of them, you'll get more of the full story. Now, up to this point, there was mention made, going back to the first season, that RAQ and Marvin and Lou had seemingly fought their way out of the projects, right? Like they got into hustling and that's how they got out of the projects. But as we see here, that actually the house that RAQ lived in with Kanan, that's actually the house that they grew up in. Where if you think about it, going back to the first season, where when we first meet High Post and RAQ, it's the same house that RAQ was living in. And then when it moved into 1991, she was living there. So there's a question to be asked about, how is it that they ended up in this house? Is this the house that they grew up in, that Lulu grew up in the sense that he's younger than RAQ and Marvin, so they probably were from the projects, and then, he grew up, they were like older than him, and so he grew up in this house? Or is it that they spent like their entire lives in this house? It doesn't really sound like that. So the question is, RAQ is obviously a few years old. Marvin is older than RAQ. RAQ is older than Lou. But exactly what those age gaps are, we don't really know. But the question that I would ask is that RAQ was already living in this house when she was like in her mid-20s. She was living there with Kanan. It's unclear how old Lou would have been at that point. But at 25, RAQ is living in this house, and it seems like it's her house at that point, right? Or rather, maybe the house that she's sharing with High Post. But if Lou grew up there, how is it that RAQ, at such a young age, ended up living in this house on her own, or seemingly on her own? Because it doesn't seem like her mom was living there. Like, what happened there? And the question is, what happened that Lou owes RAQ? What did RAQ do for Lulu? Remains to be seen. And it has to be that this is RAQ's house because RAQ is the one that's selling it. And it seems that she didn't need either Lou or Marvin's input. And if you think back to it, the first season, when Kanan was worried about something happening to RAQ, and RAQ explained to Kanan that's why she rents the house for her mom, there's some stuff to be explained here.